What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Badgers. A couple guests tonight, a couple really fun topics that we want to chop up. The ceiling for Tanner Mordecai this year. Could he realistically have maybe the best statistical passing season in Badger history? Maybe. Let's talk about it. Plus, what would making the tournament this year mean for the Badgers and Greg Gard? And we're going to talk about that Ben Brust rant, where we agree and where we disagree. All that and more in today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go on Wisconsin.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Truly do appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody that's going to be watching this later on YouTube, listen on the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. All right, so we got Rajeev. We try to do Rajeev every Tuesday. We call it Believe with Rajeev. And then we got Justin today as well. We don't have a tagline for Justin. Just we were
angry.
Disagree,
angry old man.
Disagree with Rajeev. That's the
yes.
Justin.
We're gonna start here, guys, because we've been talking a lot of guard. I wanted to talk about Tanner Mordecai. Spring practice coming up. What are realistic expectations for Mordecai in this offense with these weapons this year? Rajeev, I'm going to kick it to you to start this one. But very first, we do have Shell in the comments, and he's going to kick it off with top 10 quarterback in all of college football. Easy. I love it. Let's go.
A lot of big excitement for Tanner Mordecai. I mean, obviously, we're bringing in a guy that's got a ton of experience. The last time we saw someone with this level of experience was Russell Wilson. So, and we talk about, the best years we've ever had as a Wisconsin quarterback. You look at that year. Russell Wilson had 3,175 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 4 picks that year. I think that is an awfully high bar to set for Mordecai. It's a bar nonetheless that is achievable to an extent. I think that the thing that you have to look back to when you talk about quarterbacks, you have to look at their weapons, right? So Russell Wilson had Jared Abbrederis, Nick Toon, great, obviously stable at running backs. So I feel like now we have the deepest wide receiver room that we have ever had. Would you guys agree as far as the depth, right? I mean, to come into a season. So
I don't think it's particularly close.
Right. There you go. So that is what lends me to believe that Tanner Mordecai can have one of the best years because it's about his weapons too. But it's a high bar that Russell set. And obviously with everything that the excitement around the program, especially the offensive side of the ball and Longo, that's another X factor in this too. Look, he could have a fantastic year. 33 touchdowns, 4 picks, probably not. But anything that's going to get us to win the title and the Big Ten title is what I want to see. And I think that he can do that. There's no reason to think he can't come in here and win a championship.
I am going to go out on a limb and say that I think the touchdowns are attainable. I think they're very attainable for him because I think this will be a much more aggressive offensive scheme than we're going to be playing this year. I will say this. He's not going to have the efficiency numbers that Russell Wilson did. He's going to have more turnovers. It's just going to happen. He's never had a season, and it could change. Like we've seen NFL quarterbacks have it click in a perfect year and have the turnovers drop quite a bit. But I would be shocked if he's not like at 8 or 9 interceptions when all is said and done in the season. I just think he's going to be very capable of getting 30 touchdowns. And we saw that at North Carolina with Phil Longo's offense. Like a good quarterback in this offense is 30 plus touchdowns, and it's going to be over 3,000 yards. A great quarterback has a chance to challenge for 40 touchdowns. I think he gets to that? Everything would have to break right. And we'd have to looking at the wide receiver room, we had one of the better wide receiver rooms that we've had at Wisconsin in probably the last 15 years. And the two top guys that came in, you might look at and say could potentially be the 2 best guys in the room. And that's also with Will Pauling and Burrows potentially being really good players too. So that room, the depth in there right now in terms of, and freak skill sets that are in there is really, really interesting. We've never had that type of athletic talent in there. It's not close.
No, we talked about Tretch. Tretch might not be in the top 6. I mean, really, when you lay him out, he might not be in the top 6, and we love Tretch. So that room is crazy deep. So really quick, I went back and I averaged out the 4 years Phil Longo had at North Carolina and the 2 years Tanner Mordecai had at SMU, right? Those, if you just average out the average yards and touchdowns per season between those 6 years, it's 3,600 yards and 33.6 touchdowns. Wow. Between Longo's 4 years at North Carolina and Tanner Mordecai's 2 years. So, I mean, we're bringing in a quarterback who's averaging above what Wilson had and bringing in an offensive coordinator that's averaging above what Russell Wilson did as well. And you're going to marry those two up in Madison. Now,
not playing Big Ten defenses, though.
No. But yeah, agree. However,
but
also not
Big Ten defenses aren't used to playing this offense either.
I was going to just say, you're also not at SMU. You're not having this offensive skill set either. You know, Tanner Mordecai is going to be coming in. Now, he had a really good receiver, Rice, last year. But besides that, he's going to have a much better skill set around him. I think both of these numbers are attainable. I think 3,300 yards, 30 to 34-ish, 35 touchdowns. I think it's attainable. And even if he doesn't hit those marks, let's say he gets 25 touchdowns and 3,000 yards, that's potentially the second best season in Wisconsin quarterback history, which tells you how low the bar is, right? Yeah. Like, it is a very low bar. So I'm going to put my mark right around 32 touchdowns, right below Wilson, and about 3,500 yards above Wilson. And that's where I'm going to make my prediction. It is a low bar for quarterback history at Wisconsin, gentlemen. Jack,
yeah, especially for
Alex Hornibrook is number 2 in touchdowns in a season for Wisconsin with 25.
Give your numbers, Rajeev, because I want to throw mine out there too.
Yeah, number 2. Yeah, so as far I was going to say number 2 on our list is really low bar. Number 1 is a great year in Russell Wilson's, but yeah. All right, so I feel like you kind of convinced me on the yards. Like, I don't think he's going to get 33 touchdowns. Because I also think that Allen's going to steal a lot of those touchdowns. So I think that I'm going to say 3,200 yards, 3,250, and 29 touchdowns. I do think the running backs are going to get more than he would have had at somewhere else, with SMU. So there's that piece of it. And also, Big Ten defenses are going to bring something different. I do feel like the Longo offense will yield itself to more yards. That's a good point you guys both made. And the receivers. So there's no doubt about that. But yeah, 29 and 3,200. That's where I'll go.
I'm going to give you 2 different lines here. One is what I think the minimum for him is, and one is where I think he actually falls. The minimum I think that we see from him is 27 touchdowns, 12 picks, and 2,800 yards. The where I think he falls, I think he gets to 34 touchdowns. I think he gets 3,300 yards, and I think he's probably around 8 or 9 picks.
Yeah,
I think Justin has become Mr. Optimist about the football. Not me. Justin is.
I love this offense. I love this offense, and I love the guys that he's going to have available to him.
Agreed.
And I think that a lot of the defenses in the Big Ten, much like they struggle with dealing with Ohio State, spreading them out, I think there's a lot of defenses that are not used to playing this type of offense in the Big Ten, and they may struggle. And if these guys are actually dudes at wide receiver, they're going to have a hard time covering the 3rd and 4th guys, which I think is legitimately going to be a problem. And I think we all feel good, whether it's Pauling or Tretch, that guy in the slot is going to be a problem for somebody.
Yeah,
Tretch is going to be a big problem for people.
He's going to be a monster for like 3 years. I do think there is a potential, and I've talked about this before, Justin, I don't think you're quite as concerned about this. Rajeev, I'm curious your take. I think there is a potential where it takes a while for the offense to gel. New quarterbacks, new receivers, new play callers, new coaches, even with Longo has talked about the simplicity of his offense, right? You're running to open space, but it's undoubtedly going to be better next year, right?
Those guys need to understand what they're doing, which I get that. And I would agree with that. But you look at guys like, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, Rajeev, but you look at the guys at North Carolina, like their first year, Howell was still a stud his first year.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of both. Like there definitely is a chance that it's going to be really, really successful right off the bat because of the simplicity that he brings. And because a lot of these guys played, open offenses in high school too. Like this is not the first time they're, and a lot of these guys, I mean, a guy like Tretch who played at Bishop Gorman, that's basically a college program to an extent. So these guys have experience in different types of offenses. That being said, yeah, I mean, I do feel like, look, you also have to look at the schedule too, right? So, I mean, other than Washington State, we've got time for them to kind of build into it. Mm-hmm. So by the time the Big Ten season hits and by the time our big game hits, the big games hit, I think we're going to have a little bit better of a situation by then. So I would say, yeah, I mean, there's a risk of it not working, but I'm confident that it will take pretty quickly.
Shell had a couple points. Factor in potential blowouts if we get up on some bad teams. When there's a couple early bad teams that they could lean on the run game, put in Evers or lock whoever it is. It's a fair point. You got a couple non-competitive games likely in the non-conference.
Being a first-year offense, though, there's a solid chance that they're just going to want to keep running their offense just to get the reps in.
It's true. It's not that Christ offense, right, where you get up 14 and then you're just going to run it the rest of it. I mean, listen, there's times that works too. I'm not really here to bang on that, but it's going to be different is what we're saying, All right, we got to take a quick break, gentlemen. We're going to come back. We're going to get into a lot of your comments with your predictions for Tanner Mordecai. Then we're going to also talk about how does this team make the tournament? Do we think it's likely looking at the last 4 games, and what would that mean for a season that's been relatively disappointing? We're going to talk about it next on Locked On Badgers, but first, today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. We've talked about FanDuel a lot. The NBA season's going on. FanDuel is our new friends of the show, the new sportsbook partners for Locked On, and the number one sportsbook in the country. The NBA season midway point. Now is the best time to get in on this because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's a bonus bet back if your first bet doesn't win. That's a ton of cash. It's a ton of dinero. You can take that, go to the bank, cash in on some Kevin Durant Suns gear. That's what I would do with it. I don't know. You do you, though. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from moneyline point scores, three-pointers drained, same-game parlays. It's incredibly easy to use. The customer support is great. It's something that we go to. It's something we've been using for a long time. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. Really do appreciate y'all. Go check out Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get back into this. Get Rajeev, Justin on the show. I think I mixed you guys up here. I changed the order you were in, at least on my screen. I did accidentally. But let me get this FanDuel thing off, and let's talk about it. So 4 games left in the season. What do the Badgers need to do? Rajeev, we'll kick it to you to this one to get into the tournament. What do they have to accomplish, in your opinion?
They absolutely have to win 2 of the last 4. I think they realistically need 3 of the last 4. I've always said that you need to go 10-10 in conference. If they are 7-9, if I'm not mistaken right now, so they need to go 3-1. Purdue, sorry, that's not happening. At Michigan, sorry, not happening. So you got Iowa, you got Minnesota. They have to win both of those. They have to win. If we lose to Iowa, forget it. But I realistically, I can't really see the body of work that puts us in a situation where we are, in right now. And so if we go 2-2, are we still in potentially? Maybe we're one of those first 4 games, those play-in type games. But I really feel like 10-10 is what we need to do. Now, let's say we go 9-11 and we make on a run in the Big Ten tournament and we beat a good team along the way. We beat an Indiana or something like that. Fine. Then I think you're going to get in there. But I definitely don't want to rely on the Big Ten tournament because it's not historically been good for us. And so, I feel like we need to win 2. I would be surprised if we get in by winning just those 2. If let's say that the 2 wins are Iowa and Purdue, then we're in because we beat Purdue. So I still think we're going to need 3.
I think it's going to be very difficult without a run in the tournament. Look at it this way. If we look at just remaining games, if they somehow go 2-2 for their final games, you're looking at 17-13. If you lose in the first round of the tournament, which based off our previous, track record there is not, an unlikely scenario, 17-14 is not getting you in. It's just not. Like we'd be what 7-12 in 9-12 in conference.
9-12.
Yeah. I think legitimately they probably need to win 3 of 4, everybody but Purdue, and I think they probably need 2 games in the tournament. Like you might need you need at least 1. That's going to have to be a win.
If we win 3 of those last 4, though, Justin, do you still think we need a win in the Big Ten tournament?
That puts us at 10-10, but our overall record would be what 18-12.
10-10 would get you in though in the Big Ten.
I think 10-10 gets you in the Big Ten, especially since we're already listed as one of the last four.
I'm used to seeing like that record is so hard to get in with.
I went back and looked.
But it is a bad year. It is a bad year overall.
It's not a great year this year. And I also went back and just looked. So Indiana got in last year and they were 9-11 in conference. Michigan got in and they were, I think, 10-10. I think they were about 500. But Indiana got in with a losing record. They were a 12 seed. I think you potentially could get in splitting the last two. In that case, go ahead. I said if you split the last two, I think to feel good, you need that first win in the Big Ten tournament to feel good about it. Otherwise, you are sweating bullets.
Yeah, I think
if you win 3 of the last 4, though, I think you're in no matter what you do in the tournament. That's where I'm at. So split the last 2. I think you need 1 in the tournament, or you win 3 out of 4, and then I think you're safe. Is where I'm at.
I think a lot will depend on what happens with the other bubble teams. Because if we have a couple of teams that end up making a run, then it's going to put us in a really uncomfortable spot.
So then let's talk about the conversation. And then, Rajeev, take whatever thought you had right there, because I see you're about to say something. Do we think it's going to happen? Are we thinking we're going to go 2-2 and get a win in the tournament, or win of 3 or 4? Or Justin, let's get it to you to start this one maybe. But do you think that's actually going to happen this year?
I don't like us against Iowa because I think that if they score at all, we're in trouble, because I just don't think we can hang with them. Purdue, it's just Edie. Like we can't deal with that. We don't have the front court depth for it. We know what it looks like if we can't score at all in the post. Wisconsin's a jump shooting team for better or worse this year. If we're not hitting from 3, we're toast, because we don't have anyone that we can rely on to carry us scoring in the paint. So when it comes down to it, a team like Purdue is going to they're going to be able to beat us as long as they don't get stupid. If they just keep feeding into the post and getting easy points, they're going to just pull away from us, because we won't be able to consistently score on them unless we're just shooting lights out. Iowa's kind of similar in that they have legit scorers. Like Murray is a legit problem for us if he actually gets on a roll. We don't have a Johnny Davis to kind of match him this year to do that. And Connor's probably a year away from being able to go out there and start going blow for blow with other guys with the star on other teams. I'd be really shocked if I was going to say it. I think we go 1-3. I think we take out Minnesota, and I think that's it.
And we lose the other 3. Rajeev, where are you at on this one?
Yeah. So first of all, while I don't think we're going to beat Purdue, I just want to address the Purdue thing really fast. I do think that, if Connor's having a great night and Chucky's having a great night, and yes, we have to score the 3. We have to shoot the 3 really well in order to win these games. But we can do that. It's not like it's impossible. It's a home game. It's a top 5 team. That place is going to be up for it. We absolutely could win one of those games. Now, if we beat Purdue at home, we're in the tournament. Let's face it. We would have to lose to Minnesota. But it's just, that's a huge win. So I think we're going to do it. I know. I'm sorry. Do I think, believe me, it's a game that I've worried about all season. I think we're going to get into the tournament? I actually still believe. I do believe. Because I think we're going to go 2-2, and I think that puts us at 9-11. Do I think we need 10-10? Yes, but based on what I'm seeing right now with the last 4 with publications are out, the people on Twitter, it's actually kind of surprising me that people have us where they do. So maybe we've done enough. Our non-conference was pretty good. So, I think that I think we will win a game in the Big Ten tournament. And yeah, I think we're going to get in by going 2-2 and winning in the tournament. I'm shocked, but I think that if they're saying right now we're good enough to get in, or even in the first 4 out, then yeah, we can get in by we're going 2-2. So I believe.
I love believe with Rajeev. And by the way, you've converted me. The believe with Rajeev caravan, I am converted. I also think you get in the tournament. And Justin, I've been on your side of this for a while. I didn't think we would, but I think Rajeev is there is something to the fact that people are calling it a weak bubble, which always feels like a weird term to me. But I think the fact that we're still kind of right in the mix, and we've been 3-9 in the last 12 games. We've been playing terrible. I think we're going to beat Minnesota. And then again, I think we just need to split Michigan, Iowa. I think we can do that. I think Purdue's going to trample us, but I think we can get 2 of the other ones. And I think we get in. I think we sneak in.
Because historically, and not historically, this year, and even in the last few weeks, we've beaten teams we didn't expect to beat. We've won the games that we're like, oh, really? We won that game?
We've also lost.
Then we lose to Nebraska.
True. So what? Maybe we beat Michigan and Purdue, and we lose to Iowa, Minnesota. Hey, we get in. We get in.
You didn't convert me that far, Rajeev.
Here's it. I think it really depends on what they value and what happens with the other teams. Like some of the teams that are playing down at our level, like you have teams like Carolina and a few others out there that are kind of bubble teams right now, who are more equipped to make a run than we are, which I think is the problem area, the fire area for Wisconsin is the likelihood of us making a run here and getting hot for games. We're just so reliant on being hot from three and really working hard in a game to win. And other teams have the luck of just being like, hey, if we get solid shooting, we can out-athlete the other team and maybe get 3 or 4 wins here before we actually play the top teams in our conference in the tournament. And then, whatever, we're in by that point. So I think, it can be done. I'm not saying that Wisconsin isn't capable of doing it. Like when they play their best ball, they can hang with anyone not named Purdue in this conference. Otherwise, but they need to play that way in these games. Like they need to play these last 4 games like their chance for the tournament is their life depends on it. And we'll see if we get that.
But they're not going to though, right? We know they're
this team is what it is. Like they're inconsistent. They're all over the place. It seems like I think it's playing like a young team, right? We're looking at them, we're watching them, and these guys, you see them rather than having the team that's even keeled, they're very like up and down. Like they're just all over the place emotionally in how they play games. Like no more so than the Michigan game where we come out and play with, like we're on fire, our hair is on fire. And then some of these other games where we come out there and it's like, do you guys even want to be playing this game? You look like you're playing a rec game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just the sign of an inconsistent team. You nailed it. Like we are who we are. Like we keep saying, well, if we can put everything together, Rajeev, you kind of pointed out, if Conrad and Chucky have a good game together, we can beat Purdue, but they never do. That's just kind of, we are who we are, unfortunately. We do need to take a quick break. I want to throw this comment up here. And Rajeev, I saw you throwing up too, and I think I overwrote it accidentally. I apologize for that. But Mark said, don't know if you listened to ESPN Milwaukee. Ben Brust went on a tangent on Gard. He likes him, defending him. Mark, we did see that. We're actually talking about that next segment. So I love that you threw that comment up there. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick word from our friends of the show. All right, let's bring Rajeev and Justin back on. Appreciate everybody tuning in, really. I say it all the time, but I really do appreciate everybody that tunes into the show, everybody that supports, all the comments, the nice things you guys say on Twitter, and when you help support. Y'all are incredible. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. So Ben Brust, and we had the comment up here, did go on a bit of a rant. And I would boil it down to 10 seconds of the fan base is overreacting a little bit. Greg Gard won a conference title last year. He deserves the right to find the talent to fix the situation. I think that's kind of a boiled down version of what he said. I'm going to just lead this one off with saying I agree with basically 90% of what Brust said. I really do. And we talked about it before on the show. I think he deserves the ability to go out and fix this. I give him a lot of credit for winning the regular season, the conference title last year. I think that's a big deal from my standpoint. The only quibble I have with what Brust said, the only thing I kind of disagree with is Ben Brust also kind of said, he's got to know the problems and he's going to be able to go out and fix it. Well, I think he knew the problems last year too, and he didn't fix it in last year's portal. So that's the one spot I would quibble with. But for the most part, I agree with what Brust is saying. I think it comes back to, again, we've talked about it. We've disagreed on it. I think we're a bit of a spoiled fan base. He won the conference title last year. This is only my perspective, but he deserves a year to fix this. And then I'll just kick it off to whoever wants to take it next. That's a hot potato.
You can point at me.
Hey,
so we need to have you come back after my rant. Here.
Yeah, I want to have rebuttal. I want to have rebuttal after.
Okay. Nice, I love it.
So here's the deal. And Ryan and I have talked up and down about this. I think Gard is a good coach. I've never said he's not. What I don't think he is I don't think he's great at recruiting. And I think that the issue here is not here's how I view Greg Gard as a coach. Greg Gard is absolutely incredible at getting players to overachieve as a group collectively. And you could see this even last year watching that team find its way to the conference title. that team was not as good as what they were actually accomplishing last year. Like other than Johnny, you looked at a lot of the parts that were around him and you're like, man, if we had this or we had that or whatever, we would be so much more complete as a team. And we were winning a lot of games that we would just kind of grind it out and gut against teams that were not pretty games. Now, that said, he still accomplished it. I will give him credit for that. But the question I have with him, and this is where it scares me, is if you have a guy that's constantly overachieving but doesn't understand how to raise the ceiling on that, you have a problem where what we're seeing now is what we're going to get, and you're going to have probably very inconsistent recruiting, where it's going to be good in the years where he actually hits on his guys, and on the years where he misses, it's going to be some really rough, ugly basketball. And I think that that's kind of where we're at, because I don't think he's a guy we can look at and say, this is a guy who can consistently pull us in top 150 kids every cycle, and that these are guys that are at least going to be good contributors. Because I think we thought what we're finding out is the initial hits that he has in the guys that he checks out typically end up being good players. But when he gets kind of thrown off his game and can't really dig deep into a kid, he doesn't hit it nearly as often on his second and third options.
I hear what you're saying on recruiting, and I think that you bring up a really good point, and I agree that he's not the recruiter that Bo was. And I feel like, look, the recruiting landscape in college sports has just completely been turned over by NIL, and I feel like we don't know quite yet. I don't think we know quite yet what his recruiting ceiling is. I feel like he can still get there, and that's maybe just me being optimistic, and I get that, but I also agree with what Ben Brust said. I've said it many times on this show. I feel like when you're defending Big Ten champions, you're defending Big Ten champions. Ben Brust's issue was obviously with a lot of people that are out there that are calling for him to be fired. And I just don't see that. I just feel like, we're a program that has been very, very successful for a very, very long time. We all have friends that are fans of other college teams that don't have this. They have not been to every tournament in the last 20 some years, except 2018. Like, that's really something to stand for. And Gard has been a part of that. He was a part of it with the under Bo Ryan, and now a part of it here. And he's won 2 of the last 3 Big Ten titles. I don't have much of an issue at all with what Brust said. I feel like I understand the argument that we were kind of talking offline a little bit about him being like, he's a former player. Of course he's going to defend Gard, and I get that, but he's right too, in the sense that, or at least in my opinion, he's right, because you're talking about a program that has achieved a lot. And to me, the brief of a college basketball team is to win their conference title, get into the tournament, and it's a single elimination tournament. I mean, anything can happen in a single elimination game. Obviously, you need to be good enough to have sustained success in the tournament year in and year out. You want to make the Sweet 16s. You want to have the occasional Final Four run. And that's good with me. And I feel like we can still do that under Gard. Guaranteed? No. If he's not doing it, and if he's continuing to see a downward trend next year, okay, then we can have a different discussion. But he's earned the right to be where he is. I don't think the recruiting is. I think it could get a lot better, and with the varsity collective and what we're doing there, I think we're going to see some benefits from that piece of it as well. So, yeah, I'm totally okay with what Ben Brust said, and I agree with him for the most part.
Let me get a couple quick comments before we go in, because we've had a lot of comments. We always try to get some of that in. First of all, Shell says he can't recruit, which is the recipe for competing at the highest level. Certainly, there are people who agree with that. Murph says, Rajeev, I need to get the recipe for the optimism. I would love to think like you. Listen, it's rubbing off on me too, Murph. Like that believe with Rajeev is a real thing. And then Nick Flav, and I think I've just turned your name into Nick Flav, which I don't think that's how I pronounce it, but that sounds great coming off the screen.
Flahiv?
He said it all comes down to if he accepts reality and uses the portal in the offseason. I think that's a really good comment.
Totally. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things I've talked about, we've talked about this before, but I think it's a really, really good point, is he hasn't had the level of stress up to this point that he's going to have this offseason. And something my dad always used to say is a little bit of stress sometimes is the best thing professionally for somebody. It makes them make adjustments or get out, right? And really for the first offseason for Greg Gard, he's going to feel, well, I shouldn't say that, after that Alanda Tucker, but like, he's got to change. He knows it. Chris McIntosh is here. Chris just got fired. It's a bad season. The fans are chirping. He's got to change, and he knows it.
That is a great point that you just mentioned about Chris McIntosh too. And we've kind of mentioned that before. That was a good way to hit on it. Like, he sees all this stuff too. He's aware of what's being said about him in the discussions that someone like what Ben Brust said today. I'm sure he's heard that and he's going to hear it. And he's just saw what happened with Paul Chris. So yeah, I mean, absolutely right. He needs to use the portal. He needs to do it properly. He needs to step up. He needs to, accept NIL, speak this language, get it done. And if he doesn't, then he should be gone. But for now, I mean, look, we're okay. We are okay.
So one of the questions that I asked Ryan the other day was, does he think that Gard is capable of getting to the level of roster that we saw with the 2014 and 2015 teams? And I look at this because we saw what it takes to get to a national title game in terms of the roster composition for that time. And we looked at it and I said to him, like, look at the gauntlet of teams that we went through in order to get to that championship game. We went through Oregon, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Arizona to get to the championship game against Duke. And I look at this team and my perspective on it is this, is if this team had to go through that type of gauntlet of teams, they're just not going to. Like, we would legitimately struggle. We probably wouldn't have beaten Oregon from that bracket because they were just more athletic than what we have right now. And we would have struggled with their length and athleticism, just like we did a few years back.
I mean, it is.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is this is where he makes me uncomfortable in terms of looking forward with him. Is I need to see him do it. Like, I need to see him bring in a lineup that I say this team athletically can hang with these other teams. Bo Ryan did it in numerous occasions, and people can sit there and say that they recruited differently or whatever. The Devin Harris team was athletic. It had Longo Tucker and it had Devin Harris on it. Like, that team could go out there and run. We had the 2014 and 2015 teams. We had some teams in there that had some mixed talent with Trayvon Hughes and some other players on there where we had some athletic players. Were we always great? John Lure, another super athletic big. So, I mean, you look at it, and Wisconsin had some really good athletes on some of Bo's teams. Mm-hmm. We need to get back to that. Like, we need to stop recruiting for fit and start looking for ceiling and ability, like guys that he can develop and work his system around, and stop being so short-sighted and being like, well, this guy's got a high floor. I can get this out of him. I know I'll get this, but you have no clue if you can get anything more than that. And that's a problem.
My answer to your question is, if he keeps doing what he's doing, no, he can't. But if he adjusts and if he adapts to the current landscape of recruiting and the current and the now expectations that have been set by McIntosh and the gauntlet that has been thrown down by saying, listen, these are the expectations of our program. I think he can, if he's willing to adapt and make adjustments and do things, because I agree with you, Justin. He does need to get those athletes. You're right about 2014, 2015. Obviously, in order to get back to that point, you're right. We need the athletes. We absolutely must do that. But I still think, given the new landscape of everything and given what McIntosh is bringing as far as culture, he can do it, because I think he can be as successful as Bill Ryan was. So does he? I don't know. Can he? Yeah.
I think it's a matter of him coming out of his comfort zone. Like, he's going to have to go after players that he normally doesn't like to chase because he's worried about them not being a hit. And sometimes you have to take that. And that's what you're going to do when you chase athletic players that are going to have upside and it's unrealized, they're raw. That's what's going to happen. Like, sometimes they're going to bust. Yeah. But you have to hope that at least what they give you from that athleticism standpoint is, I'm at least getting a plus rebounder, defender, and a guy who's going to be able to move around out there. So that's going to give me something where I have at least a baseline of something positive that they give me on the court. Because I'll tell you right now, these guys that he brings in that are just shooters, if they're not hitting shots, they're not really helping you in any other part of the game.
Well, and it comes down to balance and everything, right? Which is what we're talking about. Like, to some degree, you need those shooters and you need skill.
You do. It's a mix, just like we had with the 2014-15 teams.
You just need, and again, Boo Boo Benjamin is an example of a raw athlete we brought in on a visit. Nothing happened there. And that's the type of long, bouncy wing athlete we just don't have. I'm not saying he's the answer. I'm saying he's the
type of guy.
Type of player that we miss on this roster. But again, I think, and this is where I think we probably all agree, the talent acquisition needs to get better. And whether he's going to do it or not, or whether he has a capability to do it or not, I think is maybe one of the bigger disconnects among Badger fandom about where people
and that's really the difference between you guys and me, is
Mm-hmm.
that I'm just very nervous about him proving it to me, because I look at his track record, and right now, from what I've seen from his track record, it doesn't make me comfortable that he's going to move out of his comfort zone and do it, because this is what he's used to. That does not mean that he can't do it. It just means that I'm a little bit nervous about him.
I mean, Nick Flav is saying Bronny James hasn't committed yet, and it's Tuesday with Rajeev, so anything can happen, right? Anything is possible. It's channel Kevin Garnett. I want to kind of wrap it up here. If you guys have any more comments or thoughts on what we talked about today, any comments that you wanted to really talk about that we didn't get to from the comments section, there was a really good one talking about Tanner Mordecai,
his
and
athleticism
tools, and Mordecai can move. Like
where is it? I'll find it for us here.
He can hit almost 20 miles an hour. He was clocked, I think, at 20 miles an hour.
He's not a run first guy, but he is definitely a guy that is plenty athletic. If you watch his film from his time at SMU, one of the biggest things that I liked about his film was watching how quickly he got the ball to the edges. When you'd watch him throw the tunnel screens and stuff like that, the guy would just be so quick at snapping over to the side. And that is something that Mertz was never great at. Like the footwork and everything. He's an athletic guy. He's just not a guy who wants to run. And that's, for better or worse, is probably what most coaches would prefer, as long as he understands when he should run.
The last thing I would say is let's just, make sure that we're continuing to talk about this countdown to spring football, guys. We are closing in on about 4 weeks now, I think, to first practice. So, we're going to be up. We're obviously, I think we're going to be talking about a lot on this show, all the daily updates and all the different things we're getting out of it. It's exciting. I can't wait for it. I want to hear what all these guys everything we've been talking about, the potential that all these guys have. I want to hear what the people inside the program and the people that are watching these practices are seeing come out of it. And, spring game, we'll see what happens. So, yeah.
With Luke Fickell media access, it's going to be like a month-long Christmas for Badger fans.
No, exactly. And that press conference he had in Milwaukee where he talked about letting people into the program, he is going to be all over this. Like, he's called it the launch, the spring game, all that marketing behind that. And every day we are just going to get so much coming out of there. And he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, which is build excitement for this program. And he's doing it, and it's going to happen. And man, we are going to be all over it. Locked On Badgers is going to be talking about it a lot.
He's building the brand, right? Like, it sounds so simplistic, but it was so hard with the previous administration. It was like I've used this reference before, it's like pulling our true through the swamp of sadness. Like, if you've never seen the Never Ending Story, the horse just died there at the marketing department, right? He just sunk into the swamp. And they are actually understanding that in 2023, you have to build the brand. It's so important. By the way, speaking of spring practice, we're going to go to the launch. Locked On Badgers will be there. We're going to organize some type of Badgers invasion live show, meetup, whatever it is. I'm working on some giveaways. I think we're going to have a really fun show, and I highly encourage everyone who might be interested in coming down to at least break some bread and share some beers. And we'll make more logistical plans. We literally just confirmed this yesterday, so more logistical plans are upcoming. But mark your calendars for that.
It's going to be fun. It'll be fun to get together, and as many of you as we can see would be great.
Justin, any last thoughts here?
No, just you boys better bring your drinking shoes, because I'm not sure how long it's going to be before we see each other again after that. So
it'll be fun. It'll be
bring bail money.
Yep. All right, that is our show today. A good one. I appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody watching live, all the comments. Sorry we don't get to them all, as always. I always blame me. It's my fault for that. But I do appreciate everybody chiming in. Rajeev, Justin, jumping on, as always, on Wisconsin. Let's go. And we will keep it going.